Like you're there.
You only told me 6 times that you couldn't buy. You're
Yeah.
like, I know I can't buy it. I know this is a waste of your time.
Yeah.
I know I can't buy. I was like, no,
Yeah.
let's look at the numbers. Let the numbers tell us. And then let's back into your comfort zone. And you were there.
And I remember leaving your office after 2+ hours being like, oh, now I have to buy something. I was like, I'm there.
Well, and Jazmine can probably attest to this too. It's never no, it's just not now.
Yeah.
If not now, when? And that's the creating that strategy is really key.
It was just so important for me to even start the conversation where in the beginning, it was just never a dream. And then B, when I realized that it could possibly be a dream, to have that, and to have Jazmine, and I won't use you as that, you are you, and to have Jazmine be like, no, you're there. Like just having that backing, I was like, oh, I am there. That's what I've been working so hard for.
Right. And like Colin said, sometimes George will say, not right now.
Yeah.
But in $20,000, but in 2 years, but in whatever it is, that gets you to that point. It can happen. Yeah.
So just letting everybody know, it's just important to start the conversation. No matter where you're at in your journey, even if you're starting it, you're before it, you feel like you're in the middle of it, just start the conversation with the Maritime mortgage team. Okay.
Thank you for that.
And I'm going to pass the show over to you guys. Okay.
Get on out of here, guys. We're going to create some mayhem. You can't be witness to it.
I just want to make sure that George, can you hear us? George Post, can you hear us?
I can.
We can, but we can't hear him still. So I don't know what's going on there. He's going to have to call into the studio,
Yes,
781-837-4900. Okay. So you can just put that on speakerphone. And I just want to let anybody know who is in Pembroke. The master plan public forum is tonight. So if you want to make a difference in your town and what the future of it looks like, make sure you meet me over at the cafeteria at the high school. Ciao. Ciao. And Jazmine, thank you so much for always being there for us. We love you.
Yeah. Anytime. Except 5 minutes late of whatever that time is. Okay, so we're going to get George Post on the line. But for now, I've got my co-owner of Maritime with me, Colin Brennan. Now, Colin doesn't infiltrate Boston Connect as often as I do. He doesn't flyer on Saturday, and he has been doing this for quite some time. So I first want to kick it off, Colin. First-time home buyers, give me like 2 or 3 pointers. Easy things that people can start today for buying a home.
Okay, sure. First thing, breathe deep. But you kind of already, you hit some great points, even just in your introduction there. I think, it's all about planning, strategic, planning. If it's not now, figure out an action plan. Some people say, oh, you know what? I don't know when I'll be ready. Well, make a plan. Maybe it's a 6-month plan, a 12-month plan. That's okay. You can get, your finances started and put together and kind of look at some scenarios of what realistic monthly payments, realistic total acquisition costs look like for different price point homes. That might really ground folks to realize it's not that intimidating and scary. And it's, just something you haven't done before. But like many things in life, you got to come into it and trust the people that you're working with. I think that's really an ultimate key to this.
Oh, that's huge right there. Trust is super important. And in establishing it on your first transaction can be really hard too. You'll hear a lot of different advice from different people, and your parents who purchased, forever ago, or you who purchased like 15 years ago, and your memory of that. It's really hard to drone out the noise, but a deep breath and building a team that you can surround yourself with, you can trust, you can reach out to on the weekends, that person who's going to be there throughout the whole time. It's so important there. Now, you said make a plan. How important do you feel like planning and budgeting is to buying a home?
I mean, it's just probably my personality type, but I do like to be planned and prepared. I've planned my whole life, but in reverse. So, and hoping to hit those goals. And you know what?
What does that mean? Hold on, back that up. You planned.
Yeah. So this was pretty cool. I actually, Jazmine, you were at this conference in Las Vegas a few years ago. Darren Hardy, the Compound Effect, really smart guy, but basically said, look at your funeral and what they're reading at your eulogy, and how do you want them to talk about you? And then just start working backwards from there and figure, okay, if this is what I want to achieve, what steps do I have to kind of start taking now? Real estate and non-real estate. But the biggest thing is real estate is it affects everything. It's your largest asset for most people. It's oftentimes your largest tax deductions. I'm not a tax preparer, but you can certainly consult your CPA for that. So, it all kind of, in my opinion, it all revolves around real estate in 2023 or in this decade for sure. And the folks who do and the folks who don't have real estate, the gap in wealth is just dramatically growing. So, I mean, if you talk about a level of importance, I don't know if I know anything more important for folks, who are trying to build their financial portfolio and their financial life. This is step one. It should be for almost everyone. Stop paying rent. Your landlord's mortgage is who you're paying. And guess what? Interest on rent is 100% interest rate. So, that's how I kind of look at it.
Absolutely. George Poster, do we have you online?
You sure do.
Okay.
Yay.
So, hey, George, I want to ask you. So Colin's big into visualizing dreaming, and I find that super important. But what would be something that you would tell a first-time home buyer? Give me a little bit of advice. Who do you turn to? What do you do? What's that first step?
Yeah. And I think reach out to your local professional, whether it's the folks at Boston Connect or other mortgage lenders. It is really to be a sponge, because this really is, yes, it's an important investment, but it is the biggest purchase you may or currently or forever have. I mean, this is a big ticket and there's no need to rush into anything, right? So I advise first-time home buyers or soon-to-be first-time home buyers to truly, truly be a sponge and get as much information. I mean, with ChatGPT, I mean, be careful what you read, and that's why I trust local professionals. But learn as much as you can. Read books, listen to podcasts, and you're never going to be 100% ready. But the more informed you are about the whole process, where you are specifically in your own circumstance and where you need to get to, I mean, it's just so crucial. So it's more of a information gathering stage. I can't preach that enough. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
George, you probably also say buy a multi. If I know you as well, right?
George Post, the multi-man.
Multifamily homes.
Yeah, and I think they're a great, and there's some first-time home buyer programs to get into them, and it is a good first step, and it lessens the load on the monthly payment for sure, especially if you can bring in some rental income on top of your traditional mortgage payment. So yeah, owner occupying a multifamily right off the bat. And also, which is becoming ever so popular right now, is the multi-generational living with the in-laws. We've seen, just with the crunch and the housing expense and inventory, we've seen not just, mom and dad coming together with the kids, but brother and sister buying together, just because it makes financial sense compared to, hey, you're paying $2,200 in rent, I'm paying $2,200 in rent. Can we make this work with a single family? People are getting creative, which I certainly applaud.
And the rules are relaxing around that too. So there are new guidelines that will allow you to use some of that boarder or rental income if you have a history of collecting rent from roommates. So you gotta really look into the programs. You gotta figure out what's gonna not only make it work, but make it comfortable for you. So really good. I mean, we preach it all the time. If you've worked with Maritime or if you know someone who has, we're huge into education. We're family first and education, because we truly believe that is what makes a successful home owner. We're not really focused on making home buyers. We're making home owners. And the difference there is longevity. We want multi-generational wealth for you and your family. And it starts in that first home. And like Colin said, it's oftentimes the biggest asset. It's some people's retirement plans. They'll get into the older ages, do a reverse mortgage, and then have no payment, quote unquote, into their later years. And that's an option you only have if you have that asset. So some really good pointers. Now we're going to segue, unless either of you guys have something to add, into strategic savings. Can we go?
I like it.
Okay. So
Love it.
one piece of advice I always give people is it's not just figure out what you need to save. We give an estimate number, if you're trying to create that big goal, maybe save $8,000 for every $100,000 you want to spend, right? Just figure out a number and start saving towards it. That's great. Visualize it, whatnot. But what about the practicality sense? And I feel like that first conversation, figuring out an estimated mortgage payment, something to target to go for. Everyone wants a $1,500 mortgage payment. We know, we get it, we understand. Those are fewer and far, further between when taxes might eat up $500 or $600 of that mortgage payment. Your insurance might be another $100, $200. So we're getting further away from that lovely $1,500 payment. I feel like everyone was setting their eyes to in 2013, right? So figuring out what that payment might truly be for you and then saving towards it. So I'll give an example. I had a client come into my office last week. They're going to have a $3,200 mortgage payment. That is what's going to fit the type of property that they want to buy. They currently spend $2,500 a month in rent. And they're doing a really good job at saving. They're very comfortable spending an additional, $1,000 a month, and they're going to be fine with that. They're saving right now enough to make that happen, but they've never had rent this high. $2,500 is the highest it's ever been. They just had the rent hike. They didn't love it. And so they've never spent they've never lived at $3,200. So they have a lease until October. So what we're doing is every month on the 1st, they're going to put that difference. They're going to continue saving the way they've been saving, but they're going to put that difference into an account on the 1st of every month. So they're going to take $700, put into a savings account on July 1st, on August 1st, and on September 1st. And they're going to have, before they leave this lease, they're going to have 3 months of practice payments. They're also going to save over $2,000 just doing that. But they're going to feel what it feels like to put that additional money away and continue living the life like they always have. And I love the practice payment, especially when you're living with your parents and you're about to buy a first home and you've never done it. Not only are you going to save a couple grand every month, but you're going to feel what it feels like on the last couple of days in the month when you're about to have rent due again. Do you have to tap into that savings account? Because if you do, that payment's too high. So we're kind of doing a couple things at the same time. Now, do you guys have any strategic savings advice?
Did you trademark that, the practice payment? Because if you haven't, I think you should. It is quite brilliant. And I know Colin and Jazmine preached that before joining the company because it's such a brilliant idea. And it really is 2 pronged, right? You are practicing the payment, but then there's that positive externality of, okay, well, now there's extra money, especially when you're living at home or you've got a shorter housing expense with rent. Well, now you're adding to that savings bucket. So that's just brilliant advice, just a win-win to go about it. And like you mentioned, at the end of the month, how are things looking? Do you need to dip into that a bit more for what you're saving? And I'll segue into, with the practice payment and what's left over at the end of the month, our reserves. And that everyone looks at, hey, time to get a house, right? What's down payment and what are my closing costs? And reserves are just so crucial when we talk about, Jazz mentioned on longevity and holding on to properties. And because real estate really treats you well when you treat the real estate well over the long spectrum. And you can only get there when you've got that safety net. Do you guys have any advice on estimated, based on per monthly payment, what's a good reserve number to have? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think most economists would say, at least having 6 months of mortgage payments on ice is a healthy thing. And I think also, depending on how many properties you have, that could exponentially be more as well. So, but it's all kind of boils down to budgeting. And I love it. With Jazmine, I think my wife would use #adulting for this as well. If you run out of money, well, maybe you've got too much of a bar bill going on that month. Maybe you need to grow up a little bit. Maybe no more takeout on a Saturday night, spending $200. Maybe cook a little more. But those are all important components of your household budget anyway. So, what do you think, Jazmine? How much is enough?
Well, when I'm starting off with someone, I like to aim $6,000 per 100,000 that you're going to buy just to start off for savings, because that should leave you with the minimum down payment, some closing costs, and then at least 3 months reserves. If we're shopping the $450,000 to $750,000 range, it goes up or down like when you get above that, and we always alter. But that's where I like to start. I think 3 months in this economy is practical. I think a year is the goal. And I think 3 months is a little bit more practical for cash reserves, for get to it quick money. So you're not taking a loan against your retirement. You're not, cashing in CDs. You're not, moving around your investments too much. You're just having quick access to cash. I like at least 3 months. But it's harder. It's harder today. Everything's a little bit more expensive. So coming down to the bar bill, budgeting would be my next thing about strategic savings. George was just talking about how he had 3 or 4 extra cable boxes in your house.
Wild. Yeah. When you start doing the subscription audit, right? The Amazons and you start adding it up and you go, how is that Comcast $340, right? Well, you're paying a leasing fee on cable boxes and the router. And there's ways to get around it.
Yeah. And knowing where you stand first is probably the most important cornerstone. You cannot know where you're going if you don't know where you're coming from, right? You have to understand, where's your money going? How much you making? I have people all the time that don't know their salaries. They do not know their salaries because they just know the check that gets deposited. I said, have you checked to make sure that you don't have any other withdrawals? I don't even get pay stubs. I had one person who looked at their pay stub and realized that they had child support, which with a court order that ended years ago, still being withdrawn from their pay stub. So where's that money going? And Massachusetts is just hanging out. DOR. He was a fine mass money guy with thousands of dollars of child support that had been garnished from his wages for a long time. So if you don't know what's coming in and you don't know what's going out, how can you make a plan? Colin, any thoughts on that? I know you're a big budget guy.
Like every month, I treat my own household finances like a business. I run an operating expense sheet, and if I'm in profit, if I'm in the green, if I'm in the black or in the red each month, it might be a little overkill. But I think that is paramount. And just to circle back to your client who wanted a $3,200 mortgage, I mean, 2 years ago, that was probably even a little bit more obtainable. But in 2023, not even talking to interest rates, just talking values of homes because of inventory shortage. I mean, that could be anywhere. That could be as much as, $450,000 house, $500,000 house may have a payments, with a low down payment option in that range. What about the South Shore where we are all roughly now? I don't even know if there is a house for $500,000 in Pembroke, Marshfield, Situate area. But are those the type of properties people should be jumping on because they're opportunities?
Yeah, and that's the next thing. How do you make a strategy for opportunity in this market? How do you make your own opportunity? Now, you guys probably know where I'm going to go with this, but if you were making an opportunity in this market, what would you tell people? Where would you tell them to start?
Well, I mean, right now, I think there's good value in properties this moment that are coming on that, need a little love, TLC. But, I tell people when I look at houses or people ask me for their opinion, give me the shag rug, give me the Formica and the pink
There it is.
tile, give it to me. I want that. Or my
You have
personal,
that.
I love it because you know why? Everything can go away and you can put anything you want in its place and you just saved a bunch of money and built sweat equity. But I think also right now, I mean, it's so paramount because anything that's finished and turnkey, society is just lazier than it was 10 years ago. People don't want to mow their lawn or they don't want to do yard work and they don't want to do housework. George is DIY mortgage guy. That's his hashtag. And let me tell you, this guy will build anything. And I bet you he's built a ton of sweat equity from doing it yourself, looking it up. Now, granted, maybe stay away from electricity and the plumbing, but there's a lot of things that common homeowners can do. And carpets, those are my favorite because everyone, it has carpets. And I say, guys, those roll up in about 15 minutes. And underneath is this beautiful subfloor that you can fire in tile,
Sometimes
hardwood. Yeah, if you want to remove 2,000 square feet of tile, good luck. You're going to need how many 30-yard dumpsters will you need alone for that, right? So, people
of one, but it's a lot of labor.
People miss the opportunity of old and dated, but good bones. You can't change location either, right?
Oh, huge. That's exactly where I was going. And I knew the DIY mortgage guy was going to lean right into that too. But find the distressed properties. They're going to be properties that need a little love. A lot of people, and it's not even quite so much laziness. Life gets crazy and busy, and you end up with a bunch of kids crawling up your arms, and you're trying to swing a hammer on said arms. It gets tough, and at some point you just need to move on to that next project, that next thing. And of course, you're getting into bidding wars on properties that need a little bit of love. That can get a bit much, but maybe look at that property that's been on the market a little bit longer. How about your aunt that has been wanting to sell for the longest time, but just can't get that checklist done that their agent gave them? And what about that house that your neighbor a few doors down, that they're moving on to assisted living, but no one's had the conversation with them. You could see the coming soon signs, get in there early. But if you're willing to either do the work yourself, which is great, or go through what it takes to get the renovation loan done, it doesn't even have to be your own sweat. And it doesn't have to, it can just be your equity. You can roll this in. It doesn't have to be cash. And so if you've got the vision and the patience, a lot of people get confused about the renovation loans. And just to give you a quick overview, I'm going to take just the home style loan because it's my favorite of all of them. But if you're buying a house for $200,000, it needs $100,000 of work. If you're having a 3% down payment loan, that 3% goes off that $300,000. You're going to need a $9,000 down payment for it. But that $100,000 is going into an escrow account for repairs, and it's done on a draw schedule, and the work that's going to get done before closing. You have the budget, and you have everything detailed out. The appraisal is going to take those plans and specs and the property as it stands. They're going to create a value for once the work is done. So it's right there at your fingertips. It's not as if you're rolling the dice. We're not going to lend on something that's not going to be worth it when the work is done. So you've got to, keep that stuff in mind. You can't go super crazy on things that aren't going to add value if the value isn't going to be there. But it's not all bad. It's not all scary. It's sometimes just getting an understanding of it. And every client that we've helped with a renovation or construction loan, every single one of them has had, even with a difficult construction experience, has had a good look back. People don't look back and go, oh man, I wish I didn't do that. And look at me in my dreamy house now. Yeah, it took 6 months, but oh man, I wouldn't go back and do that, because they might have had that $200,000 purchase, that $100,000 budget, but they're not sitting in a $300,000 house. They're sitting in a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 house now. So finding that opportunity and being willing to work it is really, really important.
Yeah. And George, you're the multi guy here. You can all probably comment on this if you'd like to. Just, you can do these renovation loans on multifamilies as well, right?
100%. And I'd like to touch too on, to go back a couple pieces, going back to Formica, because the real just atrocity is that it looked really good in 1972, and if you don't touch it, it's going to still look good in 2052. It's just abominable stuff. But yes, that is a easy fix to freshen something up. But yeah, renovation loans on multifamilies, particularly when it's an owner occupy, obviously get better terms. But there's a loan program for most everything. And then if you guys want to touch too, because I know it is a competitive market, right? And I really like the idea of something that has a value add, right? Built in 82 and it hasn't been renovated since, right? So you have some options to close. Because there are some moving parts to a renovation loan. It doesn't mean you cannot close with a traditional way. Get in, get your foot in the door, maybe start DIYing it a little bit, and then do a renovation loan, right? What are the timelines on that? Because people think, okay, this thing needs rehab. I need to do it right now. And the seller says, well, I need to close in 20 days, right? So let's talk on timelines to do a renovation loan. Do you need to do it right away?
Oh, absolutely not. So you could absolutely refinance later down the line. And that's a good point. A lot of people are like, okay, least out of pocket on this first one. Some people are even taking a little bit higher interest rates to get lender credits to help cover the closing costs, and they're refinancing into a renovation loan once they know exactly what needs to be done. Now, we have to always balance paying closing costs twice, right? We never really want to kind of throw you towards that, especially because usually in renovation loans, it might mean a third refinance down the line. Like you might refi to lower the payment. There's just too many closing costs, and we don't want that for you. So we always have to balance it, but there are lots of strategies around that, and you can own the home and then get the renovation loan. I actually prefer people do it on a refinance than a purchase, because until you live in a property, you almost don't know that the sunlight coming over from the west is probably the best part, point to put the skylight, until you're in it, you don't know that you really do need a wraparound deck, you need it. So I prefer the refinance side, but it is a balance on closing costs. So if you guys want to hold real quickly, just a quick reminder, you guys are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. We are Maritime Mortgage taking over for Boston Connect today. And if you have questions, we're talking strategies and successful closing. We're kind of still in the strategies part of this conversation, but if you want to join in, we are reading the comments on Facebook. Hi, ladies who've commented. But you can also call into the studio at 781-837-4900. Again, 781-837-4900. Okay, we can continue on the talk. I just wanted to abbreviate there. And
oh, absolutely. And Jazmine, I'd love to throw in a real estate hack for folks now too, in regards to renovation loans. Title 5. Dun, dun, dun. How many properties have you heard will not pass septic, will not failing Title 5?
Investors only.
Yeah. And surprise, you can do the Title 5 as part of the renovation loan. So, you can have your cake and eat it too. And I bet you if they had put the septic in, they probably would have charged more money, and at the end of the day. So, look for those properties that are, say, failing Title 5, cash only, foreclosures. You know what I mean? Like look for properties that maybe others aren't, and just look at it creatively.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the septic is always one of those things. Like we just had a deal where the sellers didn't even test the septic. They just didn't. They were like, buyer's responsibility. We have no idea. And then it passed. We closed, and then it passed. So we had a holdback, a buyer funded holdback for the lending purposes. There's a million ways around these. And then it didn't even need it. The buyers got their seller back. And if the sellers had just done the test, they probably could have sold it for more, because we got under. It was probably the only closing we've done in the last few months that was under list price. I feel like, I don't know about you, Colin, but I know George and I have been seeing a ton of over list price purchases. So if you can get in there and you can build that equity versus paying excess into someone else's equity, I mean, that sounds nice to me.
Yeah. And as far as the pulse of the market, very spot on. I think it keeps ebbing and flowing still, but I'd say 9 out of 10 homes are selling above their list price. The ones that aren't are probably not priced right to begin with. Or maybe they had, a deal fall through for some reason or another. But yeah, it's still very competitive, although it's great to see some inventory opening up. I think that probably accredits to a lot of people having offers accepted in the last couple of weeks. There's just been a little bit more inventory, which has helped. If only 4 people are fighting for a house instead of 18, it sure helps get your chances of getting that house, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, we've talked on saving, some strategic ways to kind of get around it. We've talked a little bit about finding opportunity. Let's talk about gift funds. So this is something we're getting asked probably every day, but I wanted to highlight that you can use wedding funds. It is the season, right? The bells are in the air. One of Boston Connect's couples is getting married this Saturday. Shout out to Sam and Mary. And people are wondering, okay, we're about to get an influx of cash. How do we do it? Now, Colin, George, one of you want to take it?
Well, I want to ask a roundtable survey here. Marriage or house, which came first for you guys? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, George?
Same. House, then the dog, then the wedding.
Yeah.
I don't remember. They were around the same time, but the premise was there. What's a financial priority? All marriage takes is 2 people and some justice of peace in some format. You don't need to spend
weddings, didn't you?
Two, but same person. But that is a huge thing. If you're being endowed with lots of funds from your parents, maybe just have that conversation saying, hey, as much as we want to use this to the wedding, longer term setting us up so that we stay married and happy is have good financial health. I think that's, the number one reason why marriages don't work out. So having good financial stability is like a bedrock foundation. So
And you know what? I'm gonna get right in here. You guys have got, if you're gonna buy a house together, engaged, married, you have got to show each other your finances, because you're both gonna put them on the loan application if you're both going on there. And it is super awkward for me to be in the middle of the first time that you guys have ever shown each other your finances. You don't want me in the middle there. I'm like, oh, well, we got to get rid of this bill. And like, what do you mean? What car loan? What do you mean?
I remember those. I remember that one.
You know,
don't tell him about that, or don't tell her about that. Wait a second here. You guys know that you're buying a $500,000 investment together. You may want to just have a quick convo first about where you guys are. My goodness.
But you got to get on the same page, and you can absolutely use those wedding funds. Now, a lot of the wedding sites use, we just heard a bell. I think that means we're at the last 10 minutes. A lot of the wedding sites like Zola will add all the funds together and give you one submission. And it's actually really easy to use that and document, because we're looking for large deposits. Anything over 50% of your gross earnings, or anything that is unusual to underwriting, is going to be flagged for anti-money laundering purposes. So that gift would have to be typically documented with a gift letter and a transfer. We have to see accounts and stuff. For wedding funds, if you've just got a surplus of cash, I've used people's wedding invitations and some really lovely photos through underwriting. So it's absolutely possible, and highly advised that if you are you're tying the knot and you have family and friends, put it out there. Add that house fund to your Zola wedding website. It's a great way to get
how many crock pots do you need? Instead, let them know, hey guys, as part of this, we're trying to buy a house.
Right. You only need 4 crock pots.
4 different sizes. But that's brilliant, Jazmine, because it really does speak to common sense lending, right? A couple coming together, a household formation, receiving funds as a part of the marital ceremony to start on their journey, right? So it only makes sense they should be able to use those funds to then purchase the house, right? So that's beautiful to see some changes there.
Absolutely. And then while we're on the topic of large deposits, let's move on to successful closings. You should know that we are going to be looking, when you apply for mortgage, we're going to be looking back a couple months into your bank statements and throughout the time as you're shopping for home. But by the time we get to underwriting, and I'm talking about we as in the broker, I'm not speaking for any other bank. By the time we get to underwriting, we're going to look for 1 or 2 months into the past. So if we're talking now, I might be looking at April and May. But then if you find that house in September, I'm really going to be focused on July and August. So be very cognizant that you've got eyes on your bank account, and it is strictly for anti-money laundering purposes. We do not care where you spend your money. That's not what we're looking for, but we are looking for large deposits. So if you do a lot of transferring between accounts, now's the time to stop. Okay. You're going to have to show us that next account. So before you apply, sometimes people will gather all their money, get into one account and just leave it and let that be the house account. So it's never a bad idea if you're starting to put the thought around, you're kind of kicking around, get all your savings into one savings account and just leave it there. Leave it. Don't take money, but savings checking. And if you are putting money in your savings, you're having to take it back to your checking, you might be putting too much into your savings. So a budget, again, goes a really long way to planning.
And when we're during that process, I tell you, our favorite game, we call ourselves forensic accountants half the time, because it's chase the money. It's I transfer it to here, to transfer to here. Oh, my mom gave it to me. I gave it back to her and did this and did that. That creates just a lot of headache and unnecessary. So simplicity, is definitely best, especially if you're in a tight timeline. Some of these contracts coming together now, what are they, guys? Anywhere from
2 weeks.
Yeah, 12 days to 21 days from purchase and sale to closing. So there's not a lot of time to say, I'll just wait for the next statement. It's a little more clear. So, good communication. This is part of that centraling back to the team, right? You really need to have an awesome financial person. You have real estate people that are in your pocket that you can trust, that will be looking out for you in every possible way, shape, and form. Folks like Boston Connect, who are just going above and beyond for their clients. You need to have good insurance. You need to have a good attorney. These are all components of this winning team.
Oh yeah, and all things we can help connect you with too, guys. Don't forget Maritime Mortgage. We're a broker, but we have 0 affiliates. We work with people we like who do really good work for our clients, and that's everything. You have to be family focused. You have to be relationship driven to be in this for a very long time. And those are the people we seek out. Those are the people we work with. That's why we just hijacked a show from Boston Connect. We love working with them. We have no problem promoting them. They're great. And so you really have to be able to work with people that you can trust are going to show up. And I can't tell you the difference I find with like I've got this one agent I've been trying to get a hold of for about 10 days now, and we're closing on the purchase in about 10 days, and this agent is nowhere to be found. And I can't tell you how difficult that is for everybody involved. You know, they're the ones holding the earnest money deposit. We need that receipt, and no one can get a hold of them. They're not on vacation. They're just part-time. So they're just here and there. And not that you can't be successful, but you have to build a team, and you have to understand the way they work, and you have to be able, and of course, everyone sets their own, boundaries and be respectful of that. But you need to understand when they're going to be able to communicate or not. So we're in our last 5 minutes, guys. What would you tell someone who is saying, and this is so important, I am going to just rent for now until the market crashes? I'm going to shut up and let you guys talk.
Well, I've heard people say that who are 65 years old now and say, oh, I missed it. It's too late now. I'm going to be, I've missed it in life. And it's the saddest thing, because there was a billion opportunities, and there will be a billion opportunities, but you're waiting for something that'll never happen, because, it's a supply demand thing, I think. And it's unique because, you want to sell a stock, you go ahead, but you sell a house, you got to live in a house somewhere. You have to take up inventory somewhere. So real estate is not, I don't see a crash. There's adjustments, but, time is your biggest asset. So don't waste time.
I agree. And that maybe, I wouldn't say naysayer, but someone that might say that maybe the underlying reason is maybe they're not 100% ready just yet. But the old adage of real estate is that it's going to go up and down all the way up, right? We're going to have those ups and downs, but it's going to trend up and to the right on the long arc. And it's one of those, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. You just have to hold on to these things. And if you tell me, doesn't $100 right now, doesn't it feel like a $20 bill? And we're going to be saying in 12 years from now, we're going to be saying 500 feels like 100, right? And that is just overall inflation of dollar bills. And that's why buying an asset that you also get great value out of, because that's where you can make your roots and your home. So I think not timing the market, it's time in the market, right? So don't let the naysayers get to you. Just hop in when you are ready.
And Jazmine, what would yours be?
Mine would be buy when you're ready. Don't live this Instagram life. Get yourself into a position where you can build for yourself, but don't do it before you've felt it. That's why I love the practice payment. That's why I love looking at the long-term strategy, because you really have to feel comfortable. You can't do it because your cousin did it. You can't do it because everyone's telling you to do it. You need to do it because you're ready for it. It's a huge responsibility. It is typically hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're borrowing. So you need to be prepared not only to repay, but also to keep up with the property. And you have to be ready for that full next step in adulting. There's no just heading off to Tahiti. You really got to be ready to set some roots down. Now we're in the last minute. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This is the first time I've hijacked a show. So I don't know if they're just going to hang up on us. So I'm just going to remind you guys, you are listening with Maritime Mortgage Corp. We're a local mortgage broker in the South Shore of Massachusetts. We're in Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Florida. Very selective states. We work and play where, we lend where we work and play, essentially. And you've been listening to myself, Jazmine Glasgow, Colin Brennan, and George Post. Our website is Maritime Loan or maritimemortgage.com. And I know Michelle Fay was supposed to call in. She has a new beautiful listing. So you guys can go to bostonconnect.com and see all their amazing listings there. And I hope you have a great week. Get out there and get some real estate in your portfolio. Figure out your retirement long term. We just jam out to the music.
WATD FM Marshfield, WBMS Rockton. The South Shore's first choice for live team coverage of breaking news, emergency traffic, and severe weather. WATD. Streaming online at 959watd.com and with your smart speaker.